Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Lloydminster Fire Department held a grand opening for the new Fire Station number 1 after over a year of construction on the $10 million facility.
We officially open Fire Hall number 1.
This new station has been in the works since 2018 when a report determined that the former station built in the 1940s had reached the end of its serviceable life. The two-story over 1,600 square foot building is double the size of the previous station. Located near 37th Avenue and 47th Street, the station has access to 44th Street while also offering space to grow.
Here, even though it's not centrally located, we have space to do training. We're outside away from any residential area. We're not disrupting people's barbecues or things like that they're doing during the day in a downtown residential area, and we have room to grow here. So we've got even where the fence is to the east here, we still have space outside of there to grow in the future if we need to grow, whether it's for a training center, whether it's expansion to the building.
One of the biggest highlights of the new facility is a 4-story training structure with 3 deck levels. The fire service will be able to train members locally in techniques such as rope rescue and aerial ladder rescue.
We can do vehicle extrication training. We have a pond in our backyard. We can actually do rescues for ice rescue or pond rescue. So it's a really good location.
The federal government put over $1 million into the project, while the government of Alberta contributed over $3 million, and the city picked up the other $5.7 million. The old Lloydminster Cultural and Science Center's demolition has been approved by City Council. Due to the age and deteriorating condition of the center, it has been decided that the demolition is necessary. During the decision, some councillors had questions regarding if other buildings like the old Saskatchewan Tourism Building will remain.
On that property, there's a variety of different buildings, and one of them that is in close proximity to the old Cultural and Science Centre is the old Saskatchewan Tourism Building, which has been repurposed by the city and is used for a variety of programming that in the future, with the old museum building tore down, will still be utilized and continue to provide programming in that area, and maybe even more so programming with that space opened up.
The demolition of the center has been awarded to Silverado Demolition, Inc. for an amount just over $255,000. For council, this is just the first step of the process.
This will be a step in the direction that has been talked about by myself and council members to the public. The building will come down, we'll get a clean slate, then we'll deal with the drainage issues going forward based on administrations, what they bring forward for a master plan, and then we'll take it from that step. So there's a series of steps to continue on after this one, but this is a very important step to get a clean slate, as they say.
The Alberta Outdoor Expo is one of the premier events for outdoor enjoyers, and this year one of the most well-known outdoorsmen will be teaching his craft. Terry Grant, who many will know from the reality TV show Man Tracker, will be doing a crash course on how to track man or beast at the show near Edson on Labor Day weekend.
So I'm basically going to run through the highlights of tracking, what to look for when tracking, or as we call sign, that kind of thing. It's going to be a very, I guess, comprehensive bit on learning to track, what to look for, where to look, that kind of thing.
Grant will be at the event all day Saturday and will have his book available to purchase, and will be there to sign and talk to people about his experiences and the show, which Grant is thoroughly impressed with that the show has to offer.
It's people coming up with new ideas for camping, for, getting into the hills, getting into the backcountry, and, less footprint and more convenient. They've come a long ways from a tent and a foamy and a little pump-up gas stove. So it's kind of cool to see all the new innovations and stuff like that they're coming out with. It's pretty neat.
If you would like to purchase tickets to the event and for more information, head on over to www.aoaexpo.com. This weekend, author Mark Allard will be visiting Lloyd Mall for a book signing of his newest work, Sing Fred, Dragon Slayer. Our Marcus Taylor sat down with him to discuss his book and trip to the border city.
I'm joined here today by Mark Allard Will, the author of Siegfried Dragon Slayer. Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to come on and talk about your creative works.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So the first thing I wanted to ask, I know you're based out of Saskatoon right now. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about the history of your work and what you do in general?
Yeah, for sure. So as an author, I write largely for graphic novels and comic books. I have a 7-year publication history in that medium, starting with Saskatchewan, which was a comedy Canadiana comic that came out in 2015. So Siegfried Dragon Slayer is a reimagining of the Volsunga saga into graphic novel form, the Volsunga saga being the piece of Norse mythology that inspired Tolkien to write The Hobbit. It also inspired Richard Wagner's The Ring Cycle, and it inspired a Christian medieval part of German mythology called Das Nibelungenlied. And the artist that I worked with, Jasmine Redford, out of Warman, which is just outside of Saskatoon, she has supplied these illustrations that are painted with coffee, so very, very unique in the comic book world. But it also lends like a Dark Ages tapestry kind of look to the book, which really fits with the theme, of course, being set in what would be Dark Ages Scandinavia. And so, yeah, that's really what it is in a nutshell. But the book is accessible to everybody, ages 10 and up.
This weekend, I know you'll be here at Lloyd Mall for a book signing with Dragon Slayer. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, really excited. This is the first time I've been to Lloydminster for a signing. First time I've ever really spent time in Lloydminster. So this is going to be great to meet residents, to kind of chat with people, to get to know readers in Lloydminster. Because my experience with Lloydminster is like what many Albertans or Saskatchewans would be, which is driving through to either get from Edmonton to Saskatoon or the other way around. So I'm happy to kind of get to know the city a bit better.
When you come to these local places and you receive this kind of support, what does that mean to you?
Absolutely fantastic, because as a writer, I come from a working class background, and my success with Siegfried Dragon Slayer has been hard fought. So this is a really, it's really humbling. It's really touching when people come out, support the book, when people get signed copies from me, when people then go on to follow my work. That really means a lot to me, and I'm very appreciative of anybody who does support my work.
What's next in the future for Mark?
So next out is going to be a passion project of mine. Well, I've got book 2, I should say, first of Siegfried Dragon Slayer. It's a 2-parter. So this will be the final book that comes out in hopefully a couple of years if everything goes really well, because unfortunately graphic novels do take some time. After that, it's a passion project that I really wanted to do after my grandfather passed away. He was a World War II veteran. I learned about a piece of Canadian history called Operation Oblivion, which I would recommend to viewers, I'll try and get that right, of this segment to go and check out, because it's such a fascinating part of Canadian history. And I'm working with a Chinese-Canadian illustrator, Dino Pai, as the illustrator on that book. And I've worked with the Chinese-Canadian community to research the history on that as well, as it is something that affects them, but it is a Canadian story in general. So it's that's kind of my passion project, is getting into my teeth into this kind of 1940s part of Canadian history.
Well, that sounds very, very interesting, and I'm very excited for that. You'll definitely have to keep me updated on the details for that when it's getting a little bit closer to releasing. For now, that's all the time we have, unfortunately. But Mark, I'd just like to thank you again for joining me and talking about this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And now here's a look at today's agriculture prices. The Lloydminster Barons held a mini volleyball camp at College Park School with the help of some university-level athletes. The camp took place Wednesday morning, where kids from grades 6 to 9 went through skill development on passing and serving. Former players from the University of Saskatchewan Huskies were in attendance to guide the younger group and feel the knowledge they're providing can help them progress.
I know now a lot of things that I wish I'd known when I was growing up, a lot of things that I wish somebody had been able to tell me. So I'm trying to kind of be that person for the younger generation of volleyball players. And I think you can really see, like, compared to last year, we have a lot of the same kids, but it feels like this group is better than just even last year.
They've experienced what I'm maybe about to experience, so it's probably just easier for them to just give us tips and stuff like that.
This is the second year the camp has taken place, and it's expected to take place as well next year. And now it's time for us to check in again with Marcus Taylor, who has another look at your evening weather forecast.
Thanks so much, Jace. So we're going to start out by taking a look at the temperatures currently around the regions here in the central region of the two provinces. We can start out there in the mountains, where we can see Jasper sitting at 28 degrees currently, a little bit warmer than Whitecourt sitting at 26. Athabasca is currently at 28, and down there Red Deer at 24. Taking a look at the Saskatchewan side, Meadow Lake sitting at 26, Prince Albert only at 24, and Melfort, the coolest in the Saskatchewan region, sitting at 23. Saskatoon down there in the south sitting at 25. Moving on to the northern regions, where we can take a look and see that Fort Chipewyan is sitting at 28 degrees over there on the Alberta side. High level, the warmest, it's pretty hot there, 32 degrees currently. Peace River sitting at 29, Grand Prairie is sitting at 28. On the Saskatchewan side of things, Uranium City, it's 21 degrees there currently, not quite as cold as it is in Stony Rapids, where it's only 16 degrees. It's pretty chilly there today. Wollaston Lake sitting at 17. Then we can look down south, Flin Flon sitting at 22, so a little bit cooler over here in the northern regions on the Saskatchewan side. And finally, taking a look at the south, we can see on the Alberta side here, Coronation is sitting at 27 degrees, Medicine Hat, the warmest, 28 on the Alberta side. Banff is definitely cooler, it's only 18 degrees there. And on the Saskatchewan side, once again, Yorkton sitting at 20 degrees, Estevan and Regina are both at 24. And Moose Jaw is currently sitting at 26, so pretty a little bit cooler in the southern regions here. Taking a look now at your overnight temperatures. Meadow Lake and Bonnyville, as well as Pierceland, all going to get down to lows of 13 degrees. Isle La Crosse, it's going to stay pretty warm overnight, where it'll be only getting down to a low of 17 degrees. And then Murnum and Provost are going to be the coldest overnight, getting down to a low of 10 degrees. And now taking a look at your tomorrow temperatures around the region, it's going to get up to a high of 30 degrees in Lac La Biche. Tomorrow, Cold Lake and Bonnyville both going to get up to 29 degrees. Edmonton, Vague, and Vermilion, as well as Marwayne, only going to get up to 28 degrees. On the Saskatchewan side, Isle La Crosse up there in the north going to be the warmest at 30 degrees. Maidstone and St. Walburg, as well as the border city, only going to get up to 28 degrees. And finally, taking a look at your 7-day forecast for Lloydminster. Tomorrow it's going to be 28 degrees and a bright sunny day. Friday it's going to be 27 degrees for the high. Some clouds here and there. The weekend will be a little bit cooler. It's going to be 24 degrees for the high on both days. Maybe some rain on Saturday. It'll be partly cloudy for most of the weekend. So we start the next week. Monday it's going to kick off being nice and warm, 27 degrees once again with some clouds in the sky, and it's only going to get warmer from there. Tuesday it's going to be 29 degrees for the high with about the same amount of cloud. Wednesday, that cloud will go away. It's going to be nice and hot, 31 degrees, so maybe a nice final summer day for us there. Your averages for the week, 27 degrees for the high and 13 degrees for the low. That's all the time we have for weather. We'll be back with more local news after the break.
I'm happy to be joined today on Primetime Local News by a familiar face. Lauren Rhoda is here. Lauren, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me back on.
Well, Lauren, we normally talk about parenting, topics and things like that, which we will be getting to. But I wanted to talk about an initiative that you have started in the meantime of your incredibly busy life. You have started an organization, I guess a foundation of sorts, Sticks and Strings. Tell me a little bit about that effort.
Yes, we are really excited about this. Every year, we're trying to give to charities that are meaningful to us and to make a difference because we've been so blessed and we want to help support people in need, and especially children in need. So we decided to make it bigger and to be able to help more kids in need, not only from our finances, but also from our efforts and our energies. So the best way was to create a foundation that can live on even past us, hopefully, and be passed down to our children. So we just started it just coming into the summer. So far we've had one event, and I know we'll talk about how we're selling merch, and we're planning other events, and we're working on all the ways to donate in this for the end of 2022, and then all the goals for the future years. But really our foundation, Sticks and Strings, is all about supporting children. So well-rounded childhoods and offering kids options that they might not be able to get because of their family situations or their finances. So we want kids to be able to take part in sports, music, reading, the outdoors, and also to support parents that are new or are in extra need.
And now when you say we, this is you and your husband, correct? Or are there others involved as well?
Yes, me and my husband. We have lots of volunteer help from our family so far, but we are really leading the way for now.
And for those who don't know, Lauren, your husband plays in the NHL, so that's the connection to the Sticks part, correct?
Yes, exactly. We thought it was kind of fun because Sticks and Strings can work for both sports and for music. So it is the combo there, and those are our two main passions that we're trying to focus on. But then there's lots more that's come out of it for kids.
So what's coming up, Lauren? Do you have any events, or are you still kind of in the beginning stages?
Yeah, so our next events won't actually be until next summer, so summer 2023. And so far, unless anything else pops up in the meantime, they'll be in Calgary. So we have a very intimate gala in the works that will include music and food and lots of fun things. And then we also will have 2 different workout classes, an outdoor yoga and then an indoor F45, I believe is what we're working on right now. So that's what can be expected. But in the meantime, what we're doing to raise funds, since there won't be any events coming up over the winter, is we're selling merch. So we have crew neck sweaters right now, and we have hats in the works. And we're also trying to support local Canadian small businesses and companies with all of the merch that we're selling, so that we're also supporting in another way.
So if people want to get involved with your organization, whether it be through sponsorship or just to lend a hand when it comes to events, what is the best way to start that process?
So the only social we have right now is our Instagram. So it's Sticks and Strings Foundation on Instagram, and they can reach out via message there. They can also reach out directly to me as I'm fielding all of it. So on Instagram, or emailing me at lauren.rodyk, which is RODYCH @hotmail.com. And I will make sure I take a look at it or figure out where it needs to go. And my website is also the shop where we're selling our crew necks and then our future hats for the foundation as well.
Lauren, why was it so important to you to do something like this and to have something that will be a legacy for you and your children, like you said?
Well, like I said, one of my favorite quotes actually is, if you've been blessed, build a longer table instead of a taller fence. And that's what we're trying to do, is just help as many people as we can. Now that we're parents, I see it even more. I think, oh my goodness, look at my daughter and her bookshelf and all the books that she has. And there's some kids that don't have any books. So that's one of the initiatives we're working on, is called Build My Bookshelf with the Calgary Library Foundation, to make sure every kid gets a book and gets more than one book and builds their bookshelf. So that's why it's really important to us.
Well, Lauren, this is just such a great initiative. Once again, I'll just get you to say the name of the organization and where people can find you, so that they can reach out, they can send donations, hopefully, to help out or get involved somehow. Again, what is the best way to find that organization?
Thanks so much. Yeah, so on Instagram, Sticks and Strings Foundation, or they can find more information from me at Lauren Rhoda Eberly, or my website, laurenrhodakeberly.com.
All right, well, thank you so much, Lauren, and good luck with the initiative.
Thank you so much.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
I'm proud about to introduce Joel Mckay to the program. Joel, thank you so much for being here to talk about your book, Wolf at the Door.
Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. It's good to see you and happy to be here.
So what inspired you to write this book?
So about 2 years ago, during that first phase of the lockdown during the pandemic, like everybody in Canada and probably all over the world, I was working from home in my office in this space and trying to run a company at the same time. And I just felt very claustrophobic and needed an outlet. And so I started writing fiction again. I started writing a few short stories. And then I kind of, through that process, I'm not sure how the idea came to me, but I got this idea in my head of writing a story about a kind of an ensemble cast of characters and all of their different relationships with one another, and then having it turn into something entirely different about halfway through. I thought it was kind of a wild idea. And so with that, I thought, well, what about a family Thanksgiving dinner? I don't know about you, but I've got a fair bit of dysfunction in my own family, so I kind of know what it looks like. How can it go sideways? And then what if you threw a werewolf in the mix, right? What would be the thing that would really turn it on its head? And I think the idea, as I started writing it, was as much about the pandemic as it was about the story itself, which is this entire notion that I was trying to work out in my head, as so many millions of people were at the same time, of, what's the difference between first world problems and actual problems when they hit you in the face, and how do you navigate through that? And I think that's what Wolf at the Door is really trying to do, is to take a bunch of people, show them dealing with first world problems that seem like real problems until an actual problem shows up. And then what does that look like?
So what does it bring to its genre?
Wolf at the Door does two things that are a bit different. Well, number one, it doesn't take itself seriously. I'm really passionate about the idea that in horror, you can have a lot of fun with horror. Horror doesn't always need to be something that terrifies you, that keeps you up at night. It can be something that is a page turner that you enjoy, that you have fun with, from front to back. I had one reviewer who likened it to an adult version of a Goosebumps book, and I think that was pretty on par. And I thought for a long time, because I'm the only one in my family who's really a fan of horror, that if there were more entry points into the genre that showed the breadth of the genre, that you may get more fans. And so Wolf at the Door, I think, is that. I think it truly is a doorway into this genre for people who typically don't read horror, but could suddenly find themselves enjoying something horrific. And make no mistake about it, it is a comedy first and a horror second. But it's split into two acts, and the first act is the comedy aspects of it, and the second act is literally the horrific aspects of werewolves ripping these people apart as they try to survive in this house till the next morning, effectively. So it truly has those elements, but I think it plays around with the reader in a certain way, where what is obvious about the horror in the beginning is not actually the horror intended. I think the horror intended is, at the end of it, who these characters became, and the relationships that they either resolved or didn't resolve with themselves, and how they carry on after the fact.
What should people expect going into your book?
I think you should expect to have fun, to laugh, to not take it too seriously. If I could describe it, I would describe it as, a classic, 1980s B horror movie, right? Like it's schlocky. It's purposefully so. It's purposefully absurdist. It is, the characters are all, extreme versions of people that we live with, that we are in our families, that we know in our own lives in North America. I think also for Canadians, this is a Canadian story. It's a Canadian story about Canadian Thanksgiving, Canadian people set in Canada's north, which we don't see a lot of. And the setting, the characters, some of that is all treated as incidental. So I think if you're a Canadian and you're craving Canadian fiction that's written by Canadian authors, that's actually set in our place, in our country, our sort of our own idiosyncrasies as a country, then you can find that here too. But I certainly wouldn't expect on the opposite side, if you're a reader, that this thing's going to keep you up at night and it's going to make you scared. It's not that kind of horror. It's supposed to be gateway fun horror.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you.
And taking a look at your 7-day forecast now for Lloyd. Tomorrow it's going to be 28 degrees, nice sunny day. Friday, the clouds will come back. It's going to be 27 degrees for the high on that day. As we move into the weekend, things will cool down a little bit. It's going to be 24 degrees for the high on both the weekend days with some clouds here in the sky. Monday, it's going to be 27 degrees for the high. Tuesday, it's going to be 29. And Wednesday, it's going to get up to 31 degrees, so definitely some warmer days coming up. 27 degrees for the high is your average for the week, 13 degrees for the low. Back to you, Jace.
31 degrees, that's wild. Thank you so much for that, Marcus. And thank you all for joining us for our first hour of Primetime Local News. Missed anything? Stick with us. Our second hour continues next.